is an order to, or a resolution, authorizing approval of proposed Texas statewide opioid settlement agreements. And the amount that the county will get on this is $3,000, you have that amount handy, 800 and something.
3,380,302.
Judge, the amount from Kroger that we're asking to be approved is, the direct payment to the county is $3,803.02, which will bring the grand total that's come to the county through the 9 settlements to date would be $118,536.67. There's 4 or 5 significant defendants left, and I can't guarantee or promise everything, court could go to trial and lose, but we do anticipate some more settlements. Certainly, some of the bigger ones have come in. The distributors, if you look on the cover sheet, the distributors was almost half of what's come in so far. There's one regional distributor left, and Albertsons is probably the biggest pharmacy left that we haven't settled yet with, but those will be coming up in the future.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
That's
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, now, let's see, you made the motion and you did the second. All right, and while we have you here, would you talk to us a little bit about the high-speed rail?
certainly, and I'm Blake Beckham for anybody else, and I am the Chief Litigation Counsel for Texas Against High-Speed Rail. And when this thing happened a long time ago, I was at Woodson's over in Groesbeck, and they said, well, it sure is a sad thing about that high-speed rail coming through your property. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, you must have not got the meeting or missed, there was like 5 public meetings. There may be a reason they did not put.
Oh, yeah, they
didn't notify me the rail, and I got involved. And so my firm agreed to work for free on the high-speed rail. And we thought, well, maybe we'd represent landowners if they ever got to that. And as y'all may remember, we started out and we fought it, and we probably fought 45 different lawsuits. Then the high-speed rail, they went to only suing people that we didn't represent. Because we knew how to stop them. They were trying to get on property with restraining orders to get surveys, and we just decided to fight them at every point and say, look, they're a government entity, foreign government, and they shouldn't have access to the rarely used power of eminent domain. And so we were kind of advised at every turn, no, don't fight them, they'll eventually win. And in some ways that's true, but I'm glad we fought it. What happened at the end of we did win in Centerville, Leon County. We got a court ruling that the company did not have eminent domain authority. And there were some political shenanigans. That case should have gone to the Waco Court of Appeals, and the Waco Court of Appeals has a very strong landowners' rights bias. Bias is the wrong word, opinion. Those judges really protect ranchers and landowners. And I don't know if I'm grateful that Drayton McLean gave the stadium at Baylor, my alma mater, but he's on a real estate deal in Harris County on the train, and somehow the Waco court decided they were too busy, and our case got sent to Corpus Christi, which was unusual. Christi Court of Appeals, and they just did what we call a rubber stamp opinion, but reversed it, just like no. And sometimes the court will look at what a trial court did, and they will give a very well-reasoned and detailed analysis of all the points, and it's sometimes like, yeah, we don't like what they did, we're just reversing it. And that's the type of opinion it was. It was very disappointing. And so we appealed to the Supreme Court, and to get into the Supreme Court, you have to have 3 justices out of 9 that'll say, we're interested, file some more paperwork. Then if you get 4 out of 9 to say yes, you get to have oral arguments. And then if you have 5 out of 9, that's the majority, and you get a reversal. So when we got up there, Texas Central Railroad's lawyer at the Corpus Christi Appeals had now been elected to the Supreme Court. So my opponent on the other side was on the bench. You know, hi, you know, I used to be against you, now you're ruling. Well, of course, she could not vote. So now we had down to 8, and then Eva Guzman resigned to run for Attorney General at the same time. And I've never felt this hamstring having to get the same numbers with 7 instead of 9. And you think if you got the same percentage, no, that's not the rule. And Abbott had not appointed anybody at that point to serve for Eva Guzman's seat. So we got 3 out of 4 that meant enough to have us file more paperwork, but we did not get the 4th vote for the Supreme Court to look back at Corpus to see if they did wrong. And so they poured us out. And we did one more try. We did a application for rehearing, which is almost never granted in the Supreme Court. You know, can you imagine getting judges to admit they were wrong? You know, that doesn't happen very often. And they did in this case, and they allowed us a full briefing at the Supreme Court. And then we got our Facebook group together with Texans Against High-Speed Rail, and citizens spoke and made their voices heard. And Attorney General Paxton finally got in line. We've been trying to get his attention for a long time. And they had the Solicitor General from the state come take our position, intervened at the Supreme Court on behalf of me, Texas Against High-Speed Rail, my client, and argued with us at the Supreme Court. At the very same time, as the Supreme Court stuff was going on, we found out the railroad had to pay their property taxes in any of these counties. And see, they under the threat of eminent domain, they pressured a bunch of people and got options signed. None of my clients lost their land, but some people signed options early on, and we had sworn testimony before the legislature that they would not close on any of these things until they showed some cost analysis, blah, blah, blah. Didn't do any of it. So the legislature should prosecute them for contempt or perjury. Probably won't happen. But they were under oath and said, we will never close on an option contract until we get certain permits from the federal government that they don't get until after showing some feasibility. And so at the Supreme Court, after all the arguments, we said, they're not even paying their property taxes. What, you know, threatening eminent domain, which they shouldn't have been able to do, they scared citizens into selling the land, you know, signing option contracts. They got some money at the last minute from the Japanese government and bought a bunch of small lots. Then they lied like crazy to the public and said, we have, and to the legislature, we have over 50% of the parcels that we need to build a train. And that was arguably a true statement. In Harris County, they went through a housing development with a bunch of 1/10 acre lots, and they got about 100 parcels.
Yeah.
Well, my client next door has a 6,000 acre ranch.
Yeah.
That's one parcel.
Yeah.
And so when they counted up the parcels,
It's misleading.
yeah, they had less than 10%, maybe 7% of the land bought that they needed, and the rest was going to have to go through eminent domain. And Texas, the state of Texas, argued very strongly against eminent domain to be given to the entity. And surprisingly, or you know, you don't ever know what the Supreme Court's going to do. They said at the end of the day, the entity did have eminent domain. Now, by that time, we had, you know, they paid their law firm $22 million. We got paid zero, but we had fun, and we got some free barbecue in Fairfield a few times. And but we won every hearing except at the Supreme Court in Corsicana. I'm sorry, Corpus Christi. But everywhere else, we won, and the high-speed rail company has no employees. They have one chief restructuring officer, so consultant. The entire board of directors resigned, and that, some of that had already happened. I think the Supreme Court's only supposed to look at what happened before. So we're throwing in these hand grenades. Hey, they're not paying their property taxes. Hey, their whole board resigned. They're really not supposed to consider that. We hope they would. But there is a tiny sliver of life left in the deal because there's an entity that has a court case, court ruling from the Supreme Court says it has eminent domain.
Scary.
And so the Japanese government pump life back into it. They wanted to. They quit funding it. But at the very beginning, and you think I'm making this stuff up, and this is 100% factual, and I can show you chapter and verse. When I first started getting into it, there was a venture capital firm that was promoting the high-speed rail. So I wanted to find out about this firm. We looked it up. It had one client. They had 5 partners. 3 ex-Department of Defense, 2 ex-CIA on their website. 5 guys, 2 of them used to be in CIA. Guess where they're all stationed? In Japan. So in great government corruption style, our servants over there mingling with the government, getting friendly. They wanted a front over here. They set up this company, paid them ex-CIA guys, Department of Defense, paid them to promote the high-speed rail, and they were working and planning for 2 or 3 years, and there was some big eminent domain case in Connecticut that got a bunch of people riled up, and several states passed a law, and it says something like this. If you think you got eminent domain, if you're a pipeline company or a municipal water district, if you think you have eminent domain, you file an application with the state and confirm it. Otherwise, we're wiping everybody out. If you don't wake up and put your ticket in, you're going to have to go through a longer process. And I think that deadline was the end of 2016 under this new law. And so they formed their corporation 2 days before the law and said, we have eminent domain. We're a railroad. And so one of our, now if they'd come up later, it might have been easier for them to try to become a railroad, but they were obviously studying it and trying to figure out what to do, and this perceived deadline was coming, so they filed their application paperwork, said we're a railroad, and then they started doing things. Along the way, they didn't follow the eminent domain rules. Simple. They hired a big landman company to go out and contact everybody. First thing you do is in the statute, I hand you a pamphlet that says Landowners Bill of Rights, published by the legislature.
Get that map up.
It's the simplest dang thing ever did. They didn't do that anywhere. And they probably tried to do 15 or 20 TROs. Well, I'll show them to the judge. First one is, didn't have enough Landowner Bill of Rights. Bonk, so we won 3 or 4 of those. And then they came back, did it again, and we just kept setting them back. And finally, they only did everything in Houston because they thought they would get away from the smaller county judges. And we had a big, huge 4 or 5 day injunction hearing in front of the chief judge in Houston. He was retiring, he wasn't running again, and that ended up being good for us because he didn't have any political pressure. He just said, hey, they didn't, they hadn't proved it. And so that was a big injunction. And then on the federal side, everything I've talked about is state. In federal, they went, y'all remember the old Interstate Commerce Commission? Well, it's now called the STB, Surface Transportation Board. And they went up there 6, 7 years ago now and tried a real cute trick. Hey, we need an approval to build a high-speed rail, but don't regulate us. We're the only high-speed rail. There's not a high-speed rail in the U.S. We're from Japan. We're smarter than everybody. So if you just approve our regulations, our safety, our tracks, all of our systems that we built in Japan, if you just regulate them, say they're good, and then don't regulate us. That's what they asked to do. Nobody's paying attention. No, the state didn't respond. No counties responded. That's when I first got in. and we beat that. And they said at the time, one of the ways we beat it was said, it's Dallas to Houston. It's purely state, there's no federal regulation involved. And so over a 2 or 3 year process, they went to Amtrak and said, hey, let's write a contract that says someday when we build this damn thing, you can buy a ticket from New Orleans to Dallas. And they came back and said, now we're federal. And we said, oh, you got a paper bridge, you know, really? And then in Dallas, this is how crazy it was. If you ever been to Dallas, Union Station, there's an old train station in the middle of downtown. Well, the high-speed rail is about 1.7 miles away, and it is through the homeless part of downtown, which y'all have probably never driven down by the farmer's market. You get off a couple of blocks away, and there's a bunch of shelters. It looks like Oakland. It's pretty scary. And the suggestion was people would walk 1.7 miles in August, 107-degree heat on concrete through the homeless camp. I mean, and so we hired a guy and had a drone follow him and, you know, showed this to Congress, like, are you they said that it's the same thing, they're connected, you know. And so the Surface Transportation Board caved in and said, okay, now it's federal project because of this Amtrak. I guess that's one thing we lost. But they got in trouble because the second part, remember, it was say it's a federal project and then don't regulate us. We got them turned around. I formed a company called Beckham Central Railroad. They have their Texas Central Railroad in Japan. Well, I formed Beckham Central Railroad, and I decided I wanted to eminent domain their corporate office. And I just said, I did everything they did. I filed the paperwork, I put it up there with them, and I said, I'm a railroad and I want to eminent domain your office. I got as much power as you do, you know. And the head of the Interstate Commerce Commission, STB, she thought that was pretty funny. And she said, I want my own railroad. And I said, well, I'll get you one, you know. So I actually own a railroad. I don't own any tracks or trains, just like Texas Central. But I have tried to get eminent domain across their office. So up in Washington, we lost that it was federal, and we were scared, but we won, and they said, oh, no, none of this, we're not regulating you. You have to do the full application. Well, they were already on their kind of running on fumes. They were starting to lay people off. We had slowed them down so much, and I mean, these people, they subpoenaed me. How much of the Russian thing? How much of the Japanese, Chinese thing? How much of the Swiss, the French, the Russians, the Japanese all make high-speed rail. And I met the French people, and they taught us a lot, but they never gave us any money, and we've never gotten one dime, and I'd make them fight me. They'd subpoena me and this and that, and get me down to a court, and I'd fight the subpoenas. Judge, they're trying to find out who's paying my bills. And I said, Judge, they haven't paid me a dime. And she said, Mr. Buck, will you swear to that? I said, sure. She said, why'd you go through all this? I said, because I told them on the phone. I never got anything, and they're calling me a liar by making me swear to it. They don't have a right to know, and we drove them crazy. And we never got paid for that thing. We just fought it, being good Texans and fighting this fight. But the ruling in Washington turned out maybe to be bigger than what we got in Texas, because they said we have to do what's called a full look, and that's at least a 1 year process, and they have to show their money and how they're getting there. Well, we've already, they said, oh, we're going to get grants. They want 20 to 30 billion in grants. Well, you might get 20 million, but I've talked to the people, and something in those government people, it's something at those levels, just like Wall Street underwriting, you've got to come in and show it. And this Japanese deal's in disarray. They lied to everybody at the beginning. They said it cost $10 billion. And we knew, and Great McLean, everybody said, I don't know if you remember, we'll never take a dime on their website. One dime. We'll never take one dime of government money. And just like Biden will never pardon Hunter, right? And so they said that all along. And then Ron Kirk, the ex-mayor of Dallas, he was over in Japan they didn't know we knew how to buy a Japanese newspaper. Well, he's over there giving speeches in Japan, and they're saying how he's gonna build it. Oh, we're aggressively applying for government grants and loans. So we've got their ambassador telling the truth in Japan, and on the website and everywhere here, they're saying we'll never take government money. Then it went from 10 billion to 12 billion, to 12 to 20, and 20 to, now it's over 30 billion to build it. And
They said yesterday on the radio it was 100 billion.
Yeah, we're closer to 90.
and then we have all highway studies from the traffic counts. And see, there's a lot of people that drive to Houston, to Corsicana. There's a lot of people that drive from Dallas to Fairfield. There are not that many people that drive from Dallas to Houston. And the way you figure it out, you go, I think it's Richland. It's right short of the Mejia exit. Like Mejia is 219, it's 221. It's the next exit. That is the lowest traffic count on the entire highway. So, 45. So if cars going from Dallas to Houston, it's crossing there.
Yeah.
And so we had, early on, I had a guy that used to work for the, let's see, he worked for the Federal Department of Transportation. He was this economic scientist that studied magnetic levitation trains, and he was retired. And he called me and said, they're on drugs. Their numbers are so crazy. You're the guy fighting? And I said, yeah. And he said, let me help you. And he helped us go through the math, but he said, you start at the lowest point, and we think their ridership numbers are 5 or 6 or 7 times inflated. And there is only 2 high-speed rails in the entire world, Paris to Lyon and Tokyo to Osaka, that pay for the operating expenses, not to build it.
Yeah, it's just.
And see, and
feasibility,
look,
just-
if you need it in Japan, if the government needs it and the people need it to move around, it's great. It's great. It's a great thing. But it's just like highways. The government, people need to vote on it. The government needs to decide to vote, and the money needs to be set aside properly. What the Japanese did was lied and said, we'll never take government money, give us all the permits. And they had the greedy Texans doing the real estate deals in Dallas and Houston to get it all built, and they didn't give a flip if it ever worked. If it failed, who cares? They built hotels and apartment complexes and shopping centers next, because these train stations are fabulous, big places. They're building them, but they're building it in northwest Houston, and they're now saying 5 million people a year ride it. And they're small streets, and where the stop's gonna be, if they went all the way into Houston, they'd have to go through neighborhoods and divest people, then those NIMBY people would be fighting the high-speed rail. But they stopped in northwest Houston, northwest Harris County, 52-minute cab ride to downtown. Why would you take a train to then get on an Uber? We did it Monday morning, like if I was trying to get to court, I rode the early train, and I got off, I get on the Uber for another 50 minutes to get into downtown. So if they're gonna build
If
it,
you can even get in,
yeah,
Fly quicker.
if you need to build it, it needs to go downtown to downtown. And you need to have voters approve it. You don't need to have a foreign government sneak in here. And really what I think the deal was is that the train does need fiber optics, because if it has any vibrations, it's going so fast, they need to know where there's a loose spot on the track. And they literally have to go out and sometimes reinforce these things weekly. It's a regular train, you build that track and forget about it. 200 miles an hour, 15 times a day, you get some loose spots, and they have hot spots. So that one fiber optic strand, the size of your hair, can carry all the data you ever need to run that train and report. Well, guess what? They're putting a big fiber optic backbone. That is worth $30 billion. Dallas to Houston, you could run a deal of glass fibers for data, easily worth $30 billion. So I think, not everybody agrees with it, I think the whole thing was a data play to get a straight line. You lay a pipeline that'd be way more valuable than a oil pipeline, and they own it underneath their track. Because when you come into eminent domain, I only get what the land I took from you or what I took it for. I can't put a train in and put a car lane next to it later. That's a whole nother deal. I can't put a train in and put a cable line, you know. So the data part was secret. And I think that may have been, that and Japan has real economic problems. And they don't have it, you know, everything we used to buy was made in Japan. Now it's all made in China. So they got to export something and they're trying to push their trains. So if they ever do anything, I hope it's Elon Musk in a Hyperloop, you know. And it'd be a lot faster, different, better, but, so the deal is dead with the ability to be revived. There's no employees, there's no plans, but if the Japanese government steps up and says, okay, we're going to pay for it all, you know, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, some of the land that was bought,
Yeah,
when they bought it, they gave a lien, again, they told the legislature they would, to a Japanese bank. So there's a Japanese international bank that has a lien on a lot of these little parcels. Yeah.
I checked on one of their parcels in the county the other day. I had a guy call me and say, hey, I don't think they're current on their taxes. I think there's vagrants living in this house that's on the property they bought. And I don't want that by my land.
Yeah.
And I looked, and it looked like they had paid quarterly because it was the third payment for this year that had come in on that one particular parcel. And I didn't look at all the parcels. I did call Dan and ask him, or, you know, can you look and see if they're paying their taxes, or is there anything that we need to get Robert and them to put in a tax sale? You know?
No, put a tax sale, call me.
Yeah, that'd be big.
I may have a little pocket change, but what I probably didn't finish my point earlier. The significance of the federal win was they said you got to do a full financial report, and that's all. That's how you're going to build it and finish it. But it's also if you get halfway out there and you can't, how can you unbuild it? You know,
Yeah.
a deconstruction bond. Because California, they built the bridges and the tunnels first. And then Obama started adding on. The first California project probably wasn't horrible. But they said, well, I'll put a branch over here and make it a little longer. If it was San Francisco to LA, they need it. The federal government should have built one stop, no getting off anywhere. San Francisco to LA. Federal government should have paid, maybe California should have paid part of it, but that would have been a great thing. But then Obama got in charge of it. And the guy, here's how bad it got. The guy that was the head of the California High-Speed Rail Commission, the Hefe, became the lead plaintiff suing to stop it. I got Jim Miles out of Leon County, who's our lead plaintiff. The head guy in California switched sides and went against it. So California may never be built. There is not a high-speed rail in the country, nowhere in the United States. There's a train that they call a high-speed rail called a SELA, an Amtrak, and there's a couple places it goes 100, and it's super nice, it's cushy. There's a bar, you get a cold beer, and you know it's a pretty good deal. And when they roll through Connecticut where those nice people live, it slows down to 20 miles an hour. And you can wave the kids in the backyard, and they have a beautiful 5-minute house, and they have a train just creaking by, wouldn't bother you. You know, and kids can wave, and instead of 200 miles an hour and scaring all your deer off. So where the rich people on the East Coast live, they're very careful about letting high-speed rail in. But here in Texas, they thought they, you know, bushwhacked us. And so we stopped. And we know for a fact that they selected this route, Dallas to Houston, because they thought we were all stupid and there'd be the least citizen resistance.
is there a new push to go from Dallas, I heard this yesterday on the radio now, Dallas to Austin to
So there was
down
another,
35?
before any of this, so one of the things that Dallas to Houston, one of our fights was, don't let the feds approve the route. That's what we were talking about earlier. And I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember who got it approved. But there is a route from Tulsa all the way down to San Antonio with cutting over at Waco or maybe Temple to Houston. And it's like a Y, it goes down and splits. And that's, if you were building a high-speed rail, and that's what the French would rather do, is the first 100 miles from Dallas to Waco, why would you build it twice? Going to Houston and going to go to Waco and then split over. Maybe it's 30 extra miles, but this thing costs 30 or 40 million a mile to build. So, yeah, you know, don't build 100 miles twice. And so the French said they don't want to do 200 miles an hour, they want to do about 160. They can use existing tracks. They have trains that when they go around a curve, they tilt a little bit. So they don't have, it, you know, the high-speed rail, it can't turn more than 1 degree or go up or down more than 1 degree. Otherwise it turns into a roller coaster. You know, it's going 200 miles an hour, so yeah. So but if you slow down to 150, and you could go on existing train tracks, you know what the French said they wanted to do was where there was like 2 tracks, they'd come in and they'd build a 3rd track, and they would operate a lower cost, what they call a milk train, that would stop in all these little towns. So if somebody wanted to ride the train from Georgetown to Tulsa, they could, but then they have the fast ones making the big run. That, if Texas ever has a high-speed rail, I think it should probably be that one. The French have told me, hey, if we ever come back, we want you to be our ambassador, because they're going on existing train lines. I mean, it's no eminent domain. Maybe a farmer has to give 30 more feet next to a train line.
It's already there.
Yeah, but we're not going out across green fields and all that. So there are a lot of, if you guys hear anything, call me, because half of it's just bogus. I mean, there's a gay commentator in Dallas on Channel 5, Keith somebody, and they flew him to Tokyo, and he probably had a Japanese bath with a bunch of little Tokyo boys, and they got him on a train and all this. And then he reported, you know, oh, how great it was, and for years. Yeah. And they'd interview me, and they'd have me over there for 2.5 hours. And then they'd do a 7-minute special on it, and they'd show me for like 3 seconds just nodding at my desk. Yeah, yeah, the other some attorney working for the other side. And then all was about how great the train was. But we've smoked them everywhere. I mean, they're to end up to do the thing, to do the federal report. And see, when the feds told them you have to do the full inspection and do the financial disclosures, that was like their death knell. They've never done anything else. They still lie to the press occasionally. There was an infrastructure bill that Biden was looking at some stuff, and they were like, we're shovel ready. We're shovel ready. We got the plans. You know, their one employee was saying, we're shovel ready. And we're telling reporters, read this from the feds. They've got a huge report, a 2-year deal, before they can get the permit to even build it. So they're a long way off. It's a lot of money. So we have to, there may be some fundraisers for the high-speed rail. That was that deal that happened recently. We need a little money to keep fighting and watching them when something comes up. But the hard work, you know, the first 5 or 6 years we did a ton of work. Now it's kind of maintenance, but we're keeping a watch on it. So that's the report.
Thank you.
Well,
You're now all experts.
I appreciate everything you've done too.
Well, it was, you know, they shouldn't put it on my ranch.
I got you.
You know, it pissed me off.
What got me, like the oil and gas, they're going through the heart of the oil and gas, the gas fields. Access to wells, I mean, nobody even want to talk about that can of worms, where you'd have to reroute out of unit. I mean, you're talking about
Remember, they want this thing on a 15, 20 foot high berm most of the way.
Yeah.
And in France, when you get on a high-speed rail, you're in a regular train station. You go out slowly, like with the subways, and you get 7 or 8 miles out of town, and then they switch over to a deal, and you take off. The Japanese, it is like God. Nobody crosses it. There are no crossings. Guess what? They've never had a train wreck. Yeah. You got one line going north and one line going south, and no crossings. You can have a train wreck. Yeah. But that's building a Great Wall of China, a Great Wall of Japan,
Yeah,
from Dallas all the way up there. So what we were always, I was messing with them on behalf of the counties. I said, what if the county wanted to expand their road system? They want to cross the line. Well, that berm's 20 foot high, train's 11 feet tall, and the superstructure above that, the electricity, is about 55 feet. When you get highway regulated, you gotta get back about a mile to ramp up and get over it. And it's a multiple $1 million overpass.
sure.
Where's the Freestone County gonna get that money? And we said, would you help the counties in the future, you know, if you need to cross this? And they said no. And I paid $5,000 of my own money to go to the dang breakfast with the governor in Highland Park at some fancy lady's house in Dallas at a fundraiser. And I waited in line and said, hey, Governor, this Japanese deal is going to freeze the county road system in place from Dallas for all time if you build this thing. Because, and then I asked one of the Japanese guys, I said, have you ever heard of wild pigs? And they said, yeah. And I said, I shot one, biggest one I ever shot was 375 pounds. Somebody had castrated it, so it lived but just get fat. So, thank you for whoever did that, because it was big. But I said, well, and the nose cones of these trains, they don't have cow catchers. They are just a fiberglass cone. I said, you know what happens when a fiberglass cone hits a hog at 400 miles an hour? And they said, what's that? I said, that's called an explosion. And that hog's gonna go, and it's gonna go right through the first car. And they said, oh no, we have fences. I said, oh, yeah. I know you now. You got a fence that'll keep a hog out. How does that work exactly? You know? And and so they don't have wild hogs in Japan. They don't have that problem. And they just so many things they hadn't thought about. So they were going to give a rancher, they were going to do a 14-foot culvert to cross his cattle. And I said, what is 100 cattle in a culvert with a 200-mile-an-hour train called? You know what the answer is? Stampede. Yeah. some guy there moving his cow, and a train comes through there, and, you know, there's so many things they hadn't thought out, and hopefully, look, if the government needs it, if the highways are crowded, we need to have full fair disclosure, and why don't we build it ourselves, you know?
Let's just get that third lane open from Huntsville to Richmond.
Well, let's start with doing that, you know. There's another group I represent. I got too many free clients with good ideas, but it's a partnership out of A&M, but they want to go right down the center of 45 and have a two wide and have a conveyor belt for containers. So you pull up in Houston, you put your container and you don't have to put it on a truck, and it just goes all the way to Dallas, maybe slower. But they're trying to get the company that holds the patent in conjunction with A&M is trying to get one built between the Houston and the Galveston shipping channel, shipping harbors, to hot shot containers back and forth. And if they can show that can work, that would at least take some trucks, because that can run 24/7. Get the trucks off the highway. The Hyperloop, I think, would be the very best if you can ever make it. But if you think of like a mail tube that has like a cigar thing in it, and I heard Elon Musk talking about it, he's put up a prize, you know, for who can build one that'll work. But they say, let's say it's going Dallas and Houston, they just have a tube there and needs 24 people. So as soon as it fills up, they shoot it off, and they shoot another tube a minute behind it. In the meantime, you got 30 or 40 freight lanes, and you're loading these tubes with freight, or loading them somewhere else, and they're just in line. You shoot the passengers, wait a minute or two, then you shoot freight. You can shoot freight all day long with Hyperloop till you got another passenger ready to go. Okay, shoot a passenger. High-speed rail, no freight, none. All of that money just for people, you know. So There'll be, it's 60-year-old technology. Works good, they say there's never been a death, and they lie. There's 3 or 4 terrorists, if some kid had a Coke bottle full of diesel, poured it on himself and lit it, burned off the carpet, killed everybody in his apartment. Takes 7 minutes to stop from 200 miles an hour. How long does diesel fuel and carpet take to kill everybody in the apartment? In Japan, they had no security. And so they were touting here, hey, you know, high-speed rail, be quicker than flying, no security. Well, if you were a terrorist and you were going to do something in Texas, you go after Jerry World and Cowboy Stadium, or you go after the high-speed rail. So it'll never have it with no security. So there were so many lies embedded in it. I don't think it'll work. I think if they do something different with trucking, that'd be a big deal. So. All right, well, thank you. All done.
County clerk took that over there and got it all fixed up for you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all y'all. Happy to help the county, and I will follow up on
Okay.
how to make those applications. Okay?
Appreciate it.
All right.
Well,
Y'all have a great day.
before we do our application, talk about what really we can use.
Right. I want to find out what has been applied for, what all is possible.
Yeah.
But I have read the statute. It is things to help respond to the epidemic.
Yes.
So talk to your ambulance people, county health, human services, and I don't know if it extends to jails, but in the same context, hey, our jail facilities are taxed because we got, opioid meth heads in here. So we
Our sheriff is
need.
right here, we'll have to talk in to see if we have enough.
Right.
Um,
Well, let's go out and arrest a few more, get a few more in here so we can get a number.
Yeah.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you. Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much.
And if y'all got a copy of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Didn't hear all that.
Yeah.
We go to item number 21. I believe that'll be our next one. This is, we got this from Jeremy, this is contract for medical services provided to Freestone County inmates.
Yeah, the hospital over May. Yes, so that way, if they end up taking, we do this, I think, once a year or every 2 years. Just
And it's still the same agreement, just changing the date.
Yes, it's just a new one, yes.
Yeah. This is not the one that talks about how much we pay, this is just
Right,
the
that's just the
agreement on the
medical,
medical services.
because when they take them to the hospital for local,
Yes.
that's where they go.
Yes. And you read that and it's still good.
It's still the same.
All right.
Make a motion to approve contract medical services, Freestone County inmates, Queens, Freestone County, Limestone Medical Center for 2025.
Thank you.
I second.
All in favor, aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carried. All right. Number 22, schedule for filing fees for the district clerk's office.
These up or down are just about like they always have been.
Is it the same, Renee? It's the same. I haven't had anybody ask for an increase in any of these fees. Does that have a motion to approve these? Adopt these, I guess, a motion to adopt. For a second?
I second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, aye. Motion carried. Item 23 is agreement for reimbursement for mental health counseling services from HOTCOG. Every year, we get a reimbursement on mental health counseling services. And for this year, we will receive $1,392. And it says how it can be spent, it's the same that we use it for every year too. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carried. And then we
Last
have
one,
to discuss and approve the fire truck swap with Due Volunteer Fire Department.
What that's about, the truck at Fairfield taken out of service due to them getting the grant
Mhm.
and the purchase of their new truck. The truck they were taking out was a county purchased truck. Due was looking at purchasing a chassis and building out a truck. Got them to go look at that one. They loved it. They said this will save us a ton of money.
Yeah.
And literally,
Just
it
like
was
we have.
$30,000 more they was gonna ask us for. And they said, no, that's perfect, that's perfect. So Fairfield's already agreed to it, and kind of the deal was the truck that Due would be replacing, I can't remember if it's an 89 or a 90, it's a GMC top kit, got a little 130, 116 cat in it, flatbed, no PTO or nothing, it was just a brush truck that had a slide-on
Yeah.
unit on it. So it's just got a stake bed on it. They've actually already brought it up to the county barn. Tires are good, oil's clean, cranks up good. So it's an opportunity for us to put a tank on it and have a county water truck that we could share, which would be what I would like to see. Like the water and rodeo arenas and stuff like that. I mean, it'd be sure handy. It's, as far as age, it's a really clean truck, really tight. So, if,
Do we need a motion on this? Or what does it say, discuss?
She keeps,
well, that truck, the Due truck is not a county truck, it's a truck they purchased with their money, so I think that's the main reason we needed this on the agenda, because, there'll be some title work,
Yeah.
to get it out of their name and into the county name. It should still be on our insurance already, but,
and the auditor's office keeps asset list, and so
Yes.
they would transfer that. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I second.
All in favor, aye? Motion carried. Any comments?